Good morning, everyone. My name is Ankit, and you're watching the Indian Express analysis on StudyIQ IS English channel, where we analyze important articles that appear in that day's newspaper, and we also provide you with practice MCQs and mains answer writing questions, so that to inculcate the habit of practicing your learning on everyday session. Now, this kind of a practice from exams perspective is very important, and please make sure to follow our sessions diligently, as such practice will help you get out of the inertia that students face, as I've contacted by many students that they are afraid or they are not willing to write answers. That kind of a habit you have to do away immediately if you want to get selected in the final list or not. Understood? So today is 23rd of January and we'll be covering 6 important articles that you can see appeared in the Indian Express newspaper. Also 2 articles I've taken from the website, as these articles, they are very important from our exams perspective, and we will discuss these articles. Now we'll start our today's discussion with Dhanori wetland, which is located in Greater Noida of Uttar Pradesh. And this wetland, the protesters or the petitioners in the Supreme Court, they have approached the Supreme Court so as to designate this Dhanori wetland as a Ramsar site in India, as they have said that the nearby Jewar airport, which has been constructed by Government of India, and it will be India's largest international airport, upon condition or that upon approval of that airport, the government had said that it will designate this Dhanori wetland as a Ramsar site, and hence the petitioners are asking the Supreme Court so as to mandate or ask the state government and central government respectively to designate this particular wetland as a wetland under Ramsar site, and hence this is related to environment, therefore part of GS3 syllabus. Also, we'll be dealing with jute cultivation in India, as jute, you can understand, is an important fiber crop used for many purposes. So we'll be knowing the exact geographical conditions, etc., or what are the major states which are responsible for cultivation of jute in India. Now, please take an important note. India is largest cultivator of jute anywhere in the world. So that is why such kind of cash crops, they become very important. And yesterday the government, it announced the minimum support price for this very crop. So that is why we are going to deal with. It is also important from economy and hence a part of GS paper 3 syllabus. Understood? So that is why we will be understanding the various geographical conditions, weather conditions which are required to cultivate jute crop. Now, questions on any crop, particularly with respect to cotton, we saw it appeared in the year 2020, and the practice question that I framed on jute in this session is framed exactly on the basis of the question that appeared on cotton in the year 2020. So please make sure to attend or understand the jute and its required conditions. Also, we'll be dealing with parliamentary whip, as it is an instrument particularly borrowed from the UK, as there are office called whip which are ensured to tell legislators in India what to do, and these kind of offices, they play a key role in managing the parliamentary and legislative affairs of any party, and hence it is very important from the polity perspective. Now, there is no mention of whip or its related devices in the Constitution of India. However, India, as you can understand, follows the parliamentary system of government, and hence it has borrowed such kind of an instrument from the United Kingdom. And this is a part of GS paper 2 syllabus, as it deals with the subjects related to polity. So we'll be dealing with parliamentary whip. Also, we'll be dealing with scramjet engine and hypersonic missile, as the Defense Research and Development Organization, it has tested a scramjet engine and it has fired that engine for as much as 120 seconds. So 120 seconds, which means 2 minutes, is a very short period of time for us. But for such engines to fire in a test like conditions, 120 seconds is an enormous amount of time. Also, these kind of scramjet engine, when they'll be developed by India, it will be used to power the future generation of missiles called as hypersonic missiles. And why we call them hypersonic missiles? Because they travel at the speed 5 times more than that of sound. That is, they travel at speeds exceeding Mach 5, which means 5 times the speed of sound, and hence these are called as hypersonic missile. Whereas supersonic missiles like BrahMos missile, they are called as supersonic because they travel faster than the speed of sound, which is more than 1 Mach. Understood? And these hypersonic missiles, they will be much faster than the BrahMos missiles. and this is important from GS paper 3 perspective because it deals with matters related to science and technology. So we'll be understanding how these scramjet engine functions and what are the benefits of any nation having a hypersonic missile. Now the last two articles that I've taken from website, they are part of polity syllabus, very important from our exams perspective. First one deals with electoral trust, as after invalidation or declaring the electoral bond scheme as unconstitutional, now the donations to political parties have been made through these electoral trust. So they are an important part of political financing in India. Hence we'll try to understand what makes electoral trusts different from electoral bonds and what are the legal sanctity in Indian constitution and Indian laws in order to legalize this electoral trust. Understood? Now before ending our session, we'll also be dealing the executive power to issue order, and this is in perspective of United States President Donald Trump, who has come into office and he has brought many executive orders fulfilling his electoral promises. So how is executive powers in issuing order of United States President, how is it different from that of Indian President? We'll compare that in today's article. And why we are going to compare this? Because comparison between Indian constitutional scheme and constitutions of other countries, they are a part of GS paper 2 syllabus, and hence such kind of comparison you can expect they will appear invariably in the mains examination one year or the other. And as the executive orders of Donald Trump is in news, so you can expect this kind of a topic come in this year's mains only. Understood? So candidates who are going to write this year's mains, please make sure to follow this kind of a discussion that we will cover today. Now as usual, the notes for this session will be available on my Telegram channel called ATS Live. You can search this term ATS Live into the right corner in the Telegram app, or if you're still not able to find the channel, you can always scan this QR code as it will take you directly to my Telegram channel. Now I have something that I wanted to announce. As per your request, I've uploaded another video for monthly current affairs for the month December 2024, and this one deals with 3 subjects: geography, environment, disaster management. Now I am covering these 3 subjects in one video because you can understand these 3 subjects are interrelated in nature. So categorically, whenever you are studying, you cannot separate these 3 subjects individually, rather you have to prepare them as a whole. And this trend of asking interlinked questions from these subjects, we have seen they have appeared in both GS paper 1 and GS paper 3. That is why I am going to cover this article today. Now if you want to access these lectures, please go to your YouTube channel in the website, click on the home page. Now if you have not subscribed a StudyIQ IAS channel, please do subscribe, as it will help you notify with the videos that we put up. And if you like this video, do not forget to hit the like button, as it helps keep me motivated. Understood? Now to access these videos, go on to this section called videos. Click on this videos. The first video, as you can see here, is the monthly current affairs for geography, environment and disaster management. So click on this video, watch this video, and if you have any doubts, you always have an option to come to me in the Telegram group and ask me your related questions. This is the Telegram group I am talking about. Now let me deal with the first yesterday's question that I have given you as a homework with reference to citizenship in India. Consider the following statements. Now, I have to remember, citizenship in India is given both on the basis of your birth and on the basis of your ancestry. And the provisions of providing citizenship in India combines both these aspects into one. So, for example, if you were born before 1987, you were born in India, you will be provided citizenship automatically. And if you're born between 1987 to 2003, here first you have to fulfill the requirement of birth in India, and also one of your parent needs to be a citizen of India. Understood? So these are the criteria. Now there was this third criteria introduced in the year 2003. That was first that you need to be born in India, and also another fulfill that both of your parents should be the citizen, or if one of your parents is an Indian citizen and another is not an illegal migrant, then also you are eligible to get citizenship in India. Understood? So these are the conditions that you have to fulfill. So suppose if a child is born in the year 2025, he or she will be provided Indian citizenship on 2 conditions. First, that he or she should be born in India, and both of his or her parents should be Indian citizen, or if one parent is Indian citizen, the another one should not be an illegal migrant. Understood? So this is how you will grant citizenship to an Indian child in the year 2025. Understood? So these are the provisions that combines both aspects of birth as well as ancestry, that is jus soli as jus sanguini. Understood? So citizenship by birth in India is granted only if both parents are Indian citizen at the time of child of birth. Now this is incorrect, as I've told you that there needs to be both citizens to be citizens of India, that is the both parents. However, if there is one parent who is a citizen of India, the another parent does not have to be an illegal migrant. Understood? So in that case also the citizenship is provided. So only wala word is incorrect because it states both have to be the Indian citizen at the time of the birth of their child. So first statement incorrect. Moving to the second statement, a person born outside India, they can acquire Indian citizenship by descent if either parent was an Indian citizen at the time of their birth. Now this is how you acquire a citizenship, that even if you're not born in India, suppose if you're born to an Indian parent, so you have an option to file for registration for Indian citizenship. Understood? So second statement here is correct. Now we have to identify correct statement. Option B is the right answer because first was incorrect. As I told you, there are two conditions required. Both of them have to be Indian citizen, or either one have to be the Indian citizen and another one should not be an illegal migrant. Understood? Now, this is the mains question that we are going to take up in our today's discussion, as we will compare and contrast the powers of President of United States to issue executive order with Indian President's power to promulgate ordinance. So both of these presidents have the power to implement their orders in one way or the other, but the nature of this power is very different, and we have to compare this in our today's discussion in form of constitutional basis, scope and limitation in the democratic governance. Understood? Now let us move to the first article of the day. Good morning Kalpana, good morning Sauji, good morning Augustine, good morning 97, good morning Baga Springs, Bulbul, Gaurav, very good morning to you all. Yes, Baga Springs, Gaurav Kumar, yes, option B was right. Good morning FTY. Now this first article, as you can see, appeared on page 3rd of the Indian Express, and it deals that the Dhanori wetland, it is a subject of Supreme Court matter, and this Supreme Court matter has reached because earlier the government has said that it will give Dhanori wetland the status of a Ramsar site as it is located near the Jewar airport, and whenever the environmental clearance for Jewar airport was provided, the government said that it will give the Ramsar status site to the Dhanori wetland. Now this has reached the National Green Tribunal, and National Green Tribunal has asked the United UP government, or an NGT, it has directed the Uttar Pradesh government to place on record in a matter of just 4 weeks on what is the status of notifying Dhanori water body, first of all, as a wetland. Now this NGT, it was hearing a petition by a bird watcher who has sought notification of Dhanori wetland as a Ramsar site and a bird sanctuary. Now the power of notifying any body as a wetland is the power of state government, whereas the power of designating that wetland as a Ramsar site is not with state government, rather that power is with the central government after the recommendation is made by the state government. So please take care of this kind of a factor. That is, the authority to give status of a wetland to any water body is with state government, whereas the power to designate any wetland as a Ramsar site is with the central government and not state government. Understood? Now, first of all, in this article, let us now discuss what is a wetland after all. Now, this definition of wetland is given under Wetlands Conservation and Management Rule, which was passed in 2017. And according to this rule, the wetlands, they are defined as an area which has marsh, fen, peatland, water. It may be both natural or artificial sites, and they can be either permanently or temporarily under the waterlogging. Now, you have also to ensure that the water which is present in the wetland may be static or flowing in nature. That means both lakes and rivers can be categorized as a wetland, and they can be both fresh water as well as salt water water bodies. Now these include areas of marine water, that is even coastal areas can be designated as a wetland. However, the water depth in that region should not be more than 6 meters in total. Understood? So whatever be the water body, be it fresh water, salt water, be it static or flowing, it can be designated as a wetland irrespective of the area it is located, provided the depth of that water body is less than 6 meters in general. Understood? And this definition was given in Wetland Conservation and Management Rules of the year 2017. Now, let us try to understand what is Ramsar site. That some kind of a wetlands are designated as Ramsar site, but there needs to be certain conditions, right? So what are these conditions? Now, Ramsar Convention is a treaty which was signed by many countries in the year 1971, and it was signed in the city of Ramsar, which is located in Iran. And there are wetlands who have to meet certain criteria that are ecological and biodiversity criteria, and after they are fulfilling such criteria, only then these wetlands are designated as Ramsar sites. Understood? Now, such wetlands do have high ecological value, they are identified, and it is the central government that declares them as Ramsar sites, and central government declares them after the recommendation is made by the state governments. Understood? So that is why the NGT is asking the United UP government that what is the status of it is notifying the Ramsar site. Okay. Now let us try to understand what are the criteria based on which the Dhanori wetland should be categorized as a Ramsar site. Now these kind of criteria were given in the petition filed in the NGT. It states that the Dhanori wetland is of value to vulnerable, endangered and critically endangered species. It is supporting more than 20,000 birds, whereas it is supporting 1% of the individual population of any one species. And it has a significant portion or significant population of Sarus crane, which is a state bird of Uttar Pradesh. Understood? So this is the criteria based on which the petitioners are saying that Dhanori wetland is qualified to be called as a Ramsar site, that it is a value to vulnerable, endangered and critical species, it supports more than 20,000 bird, and it has a presence of 1% of individual population of any one species. Understood? Now, the Dhanori wetland, you have to understand it is of important ecological and environmental significance. First of all, because it has presence of more than 20,000 waterfowls. It supports 23 species of birds which are endangered, critically endangered and threatened, and it has over 150 population of Sarus crane. And Sarus crane is the state bird of Uttar Pradesh, as I have already told you, and the national population of Sarus crane is around 8,000 in total. Now, this Sarus crane is available in the Dhanori wetland. It roosts during the period of March and May when the wetland is filled with water, and you can understand during these summer months the other places in the nearby areas are not having the presence of water. So requiring water, this Sarus cranes, they eventually end up in the Dhanori wetlands. Now additionally, these Dhanori wetlands are also home to 217 species of birds, and at the peak of migratory season, whenever the birds they are migrating from Central Asian republics to the African areas which are warmer during the winter months, and they find refuge and rest in these kind of wetlands. Now in the peak of migratory season, that is between November and March, the Dhanori wetland, it is home to as many as 50,000 waterfowls. So at any given point of time, it has 20,000 waterfowls, but the number increases from 20,000 to 50,000 at the peak of migratory season. Understood? So this is why such kind of a Dhanori wetland is very important ecologically and from an environment perspective, and that is why we need to give this kind of a wetland the status of Ramsar site, which will make it a more attractive tourist and ecological destination. Understood? Now let us try to solve this practice question. Consider the following statement: Dhanori wetland located in Uttar Pradesh is known for being a critical habitat of the great Indian bustard, the state bird of Uttar Pradesh. First of all, there are two wrong insinuations in this statement. It is not known for a critical habitat of great Indian bustard, rather it is known as the critical habitat of Sarus crane, which is the state bird of Uttar Pradesh. Whereas the great Indian bustards can be found in Desert National Park located in Rajasthan and not Uttar Pradesh. So first statement incorrect. Second, Dhanori wetland is designated as a Ramsar site under Ramsar Convention on Wetland. This is incorrect. The petition was actually to designate as Ramsar site. However, currently it is not designated as Ramsar site. Understood? So, second statement also incorrect. Now, we have to identify correct statement. Both of them are incorrect. Therefore, option D is your right answer. Yes, Bhaga Spinks, you're right. Option D, no FTY. Option D would be right, not option A. Now, moving to another article, this one states that the central government, that is after a meeting of Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs, has announced the MSP for jute. And this kind of a crops, they are important part of GS paper 3 syllabus, and hence I have mentioned it here. And the news article, it appeared on page 6 of the Delhi edition. Now, the important crops, their MSP, both are important from prelims perspective primarily. That is why we are going to deal with important facts which are related to jute. But first of all, let us try to understand the context of this article. Now, the Union Cabinet yesterday approved the minimum support prices of 5,650 per quintal for jute, which is 6% more than the last year's MSP. Now, what is the MSP of any crop? It is not important from exam, but you have to realize that center invariably increases the amount of MSP every year, which makes which allows the farmers to get more profit for their produce. Now, this decision was taken by the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs, and it takes this decision after the approval or recommendation of Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices, which is known as CSEP. Now, this Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs is headed by the Prime Minister of India, and the new MSP, which ensures a return of 66.8% overall average cost of production of jute, is intended to earn or provide more income to the farmers of jute crop. So, in that regard, let us try to understand what are the importance of jute crop. Now, as you can understand, in addition to cotton, jute is one of the most important natural fiber in India, and it is second most important or second most used natural fiber in India after cotton. Now, primarily it is used to manufacturing gunny bags, ropes, carpets and rugs, and as you can understand, most of the boras or bags which are used to carry grains, these are made out of jute for many multiple reasons. First of all, that these are available, these are very strong in nature, so it will not break even under heavy load conditions, and they are in great demand due to lower prices, soft fabric, as well as their strength, as I have already told you. However, in recent time, due to prevalence of synthetic fibers, the demand for jute has reduced. However, it is still an important crop which is cultivated primarily in the eastern part of our country, which is generally socio-economically backward areas in our country, and hence the benefit or the incomes of the farmers growing jute is very important for Indian agricultural system. Now, the climatic conditions which are required for growth of the jute crop is that it requires warmer temperatures between 25 to 35 degrees centigrade. It requires large amount of water from 150 to 250 centimeters annually. So, you can understand only the areas which witness heavy rainfall or have a huge irrigation support, these areas only can grow the jute crop. Further, the soil type which is required for jute crop is well-drained alluvial soil. Now, you have to realize the amount of nutrition required for jute crop is quite huge, and that is why alluvial soils are the ones that provide the adequate amount of nutrition. Now, there is another factor you have to know, that the amount of nutrition which is available for any crop, it goes down drastically after the cultivation of every instances of the jute crop. So, that kind of an area should have the ability to replenish the nutrients, and that is why these alluvial soils which are located very close to the floodplains of any river are important. And therefore, you will find that the jute crops, they are mostly grown in the flood banks or in the banks very close to the rivers such as Ganga and Brahmaputra. Therefore, the states which grows these kind of jute products, they are primarily the states which are located on the coast of Ganga river as well as Brahmaputra river, that is Bihar, West Bengal, Assam, etc. Understood? Now, India is the world's largest producer of jute. It is responsible for about 57% cultivation of jute across the world. It is followed by Bangladesh, which is responsible for about 25% of cultivation. Now, this was production of jute, but when it comes to exports of jute, it is more done exported by Bangladesh. However, India, it is also a large market for jute products, and therefore India is not a very large exporter of jute crop. Further, this jute crop is planted between April and May, and it is harvested between July and August. So this kind of a season which also witnessed rainfall season, so you understand the flow of water and the amount of water required for these jute crop, they are quite high. And they are mainly grown in eastern part of the country. As I've already told you, they require rich alluvial soils which are provided in the delta areas of Ganga and Brahmaputra. Now the major producing or jute producing states in India are West Bengal, Bihar, followed by Assam, and there are other jute producers like Odisha, Andhra, Meghalaya and Tripura. Now in terms of map, I have provided you a map here. These are the important jute growing areas in the country. Now the first by far is West Bengal, whereas Assam and Bihar, they are quite close, and therefore Bihar can be more or even Assam can be more at any year. So first three you have to remember, West Bengal is at the top by very far. Second are very close, second and third are very close, that is Assam and Bihar, whereas fourth, which is Meghalaya, is again very far from the third spot. Understood? So I have zoomed in this map for your convenience. These are the states which grow jute, and as I told you, West Bengal is the largest growing jute state in the country. Understood? So you can watch this map in the notes that I will provide you. So until then, let us move to the next article. This one appeared on page 6 of the Indian Express newspaper, and it states that the Vice President of India has actually questioned the need for parties to issue frequent amount of whips in the country, because according to Vice President Jagdeep Dhankad, this kind of whips which are issued by parties from time to time, they restrict the abilities of representatives in India to freedom or have to decide any political matter on their own, and they are subject them to servility of the whips and wishes and commands of the party's high command. Understood? So these kind of instruments such as whips, according to Vice President Dhankad, should not be used quite frequently. Also, you have to understand that why does any party issue whip? They issue whip to members so as to enable them to present and vote on a certain important legislation in a way that the party wants them to. And according to anti-defection law, any legislature which is elected on a ticket of any particular party is bound by the decisions made by the party, that he or she cannot vote as per their own conscience. Rather, they have to follow the party line in letter and spirit, and these are issued through issuing of whips by the party. Understood? Now let us try to understand more about these whips. Now these whips in parliamentary parlance, they are known for two different things. First, they are known as for written orders which are issued to the members of political party by in their house, so as to they are required to abide by a certain direction which is issued by the party. Also, whips are known, or whips are the designated officials who are ensuring that these written orders are provided to the members of the party. So these designated officials, they are authorized by the political parties themselves to issue the directions, and the direction are also called whips. So does the designated official who issues these whips. Understood? Now the term, it has originally not present in the constitution. So if the question comes, is the term whip present in the Indian constitution? The answer is no. So where does this whip comes from? It is derived from old British practice of whipping in the lawmakers so as to allow them to follow the party line. So this is the origin of whip. So it is not present in the Indian constitution. However, as India is a parliamentary system of government, and therefore it follows certain parliamentary traditions which originated in the old United Kingdom. Understood? Now, what is actually a whip? This whip actually, it requires any party member to be present in the house if the party desire, or vote in a certain way, that vote yes or a no for an important legislation, and they can only vote in a particular way, as I have already told you, what the party or their respective political party tells them to vote. And all political parties in India have the power to issue whips to their members, and parties, they often appoint a senior legislator among their house members, and these legislative members are issued or are responsible to issue whips. Further, these important senior most whip is designated as the chief whip, whereas he or she can be assisted by additional whips as appointed by the political party. Now, what does actually whip do? Their importance depends on the kind of whips which are issued, and these are inferred or resulting from the number of lines that the order has. If the whip is a one-line whip and it is underlined only once, you can understand that it is primarily issued to inform the party members of a vote or allow them to abstain or participate in a vote. So, the primary intention of bringing one-line whip is to inform the party members. As against one-line whip, the two-line whip, it directs them to be present during the vote. So, the importance of two-line whip is more than one-line whip. Whereas the three-line whip is concerned, it is the strongest whip which is employed or which is incurred in the important occasions, such as whenever the party is facing a no confidence motion. So, to preserve its government, the party would need the help that it might have from the members of the house. So as to allow these members to participate in the no confidence vote and vote according to the wishes of political party, they issue a three-line whip, and the party members, they do not have an option to skip that vote. So it is an obligation on the party member to follow these three-line whip, which is issued on important matters. If a party has to pass a certain kind of a law, or it has to take part in the no confidence motion so as to protect its government, in all these cases three-line whips are issued. And as I told you, it places an obligation on the members of the party to toe or to follow whatever is being preached by the political party. Understood? Now, what happens if the whip is defied by any member of the political party? Now, in India, the membership of that political member who defies or who does not try to follow the whip, it is liable to be disqualified under the anti-defection law, as this anti-defection law gives the power to the presiding officer of the house, that is speaker in cases of Lok Sabha, and chairman of Lok Sabha, that is vice president in case of Raj Sabha. He or she can decide whether to disqualify any member if that member has not followed the party whip. Whereas in other countries such as UK are concerned, the MPs, they can lose their membership of their party by not following the whip. However, their membership of the house, it remains intact. So in case of India, the membership of the member who has defied the whip from the political party can also be cancelled, and so does the membership from the membership of the house is also cancelled. Whereas in UK, only the membership of political parties is cancelled, whereas the membership of the house, it is not cancelled. Whereas the United States is concerned, the party's whip role is primarily to gauge or to understand in which way the legislature is going to vote. So the mandatory nature of whip is not applicable in cases of US, rather it is more of an indicative value. Whereas on the other hand, in countries like India, it is both of symbolic as well as legal value. That is, if any member of the political party, he or she does not follow the whip of its or their own party, the membership of the house and the membership of the party is liable to be cancelled. Understood? Now let us try to solve this practice question with reference to whip in Indian politics. Consider the following statement. A whip is a written directive issued by a political party to its member in the legislature to ensure the party discipline during voting. Quite straightforward question, correct? Members disobeying a whip can face disqualification under the 10th schedule of Constitution. Yes, correct. 10th schedule is actually the schedule which brought anti-defection law, and therefore second statement becomes correct. Now, third statement, the whip is applicable only in the matters of no confidence motion. Now, it is applicable in matters of no confidence motion, but the here word only is incorrect, as it is applicable on all the matters, that even if a party requires to pass any important legislation, then also they can issue the whip to its party member so that they are present or they vote according to the wishes of their party. So third statement is incorrect. First and second are correct. We have to identify correct statement. Therefore, option B here is the right answer. Yes, Baga Spinks, again you are right. Option B is the right answer. Sir, upper house election is not issued by any party. Sorry, I do not understand your statement, Gaurav. Now, as I tell you every day, you can always have an option to watch this session on the link that I provide you here, as the advantage of watching this session on our website is that you gain access to the PPT and notes there itself. You do not have to go separately on the Telegram channel to access PPTs. You also have an option to download this video so that you can watch it offline in case you have a patchy internet connection or if you're traveling somewhere. Also, you can practice this knowledge by learning through interactive MCQs that we are providing on the portal, and this interactive MCQs makes your learning complete and comprehensive. Understood? So these are the advantages. Please register for the course. It is given here on the link that I've provided. Now moving to the next article. This article appeared on the page 7 of the Indian Express newspaper, and it states that the DRDO has taken a test to conduct important tests for scramjet engine, which is important for developing hypersonic missile. Now such kind of an article are important from science and technology perspective, and hence they are an important part of GS paper 3. Now let us try to understand the context. As I've told you, many countries are in a race currently to develop hypersonic missiles. So is India, so that it is not left out of this technological race. And in that regard, the Defense Research and Development Organization, it has demonstrated the ability to actively cooled scramjet combustion or an engine which is fired for as much as 120 seconds, which is a huge amount of time in scientific conditions. So this is a first time such an engine has been fired in India, and it is a successful ground test. It marks a crucial milestone if India were to develop the next generation hypersonic missile. And which kind of an engine is expected to power these hypersonic missiles? It is the scramjet engine. So in that regard, let us try to understand what is a scramjet engine. It is actually a term which is used as an abbreviation for supersonic combustion ramjet engine. It is an engine which is powered by the air breathing propulsion system, and it is designed to be operated at hypersonic speed. Now let us understand how does this work with the help of this diagram. Now as you can see, this is a scramjet engine. So whenever the air is flowing into it at a very high pressure and at very high speed, the temperatures of air, whenever it reaches this kind of an area, it witnesses very high amount of pressure. Now as the high pressure of the air flowing in this area is very high, the temperature of the air rises much higher. And because the temperature of this air rises quite high in this area, whenever you are injecting a fuel to it, it catches fire. And this fire is actually used to propel the engine backward through the Newton's third law of motion. And this is how, by just simple flow of atmospheric air into the engine, you are able to power this engine by the method of fuel injection. Understood? So there are 3 stages which are involved in the working of this engine. First is the air compression. That is the incoming air which is compressed into a very small amount of area. It results into increase in pressure of the air, and by increasing in pressure, the temperature of the air also reaches quite high. And when the fuel is injected to this high temperature air, it catches fire, and that is why it leads to combustion. And supersonic combustion, it is this process which enables this air or fire to flow backwards and thereby pushing the engine and the missile forwards. Understood? So this is how such scramjet engine works. Now these scramjet engines, they have an advantage. First of all, they are very efficient. It utilizes atmospheric oxygen itself, so you do not carry on the separate oxygen in cylinders, which reduces the weight of the engine. Also, it is very less complex as it does not have any moving part. Therefore, the ability of these engines to go bad is also quite less. Further, the capability of these engines is that they are powering at very high speeds, which enables them to achieve higher speeds more than Mach 5, which is essential for hypersonic missiles. And the application, as I've told you, they are used in hypersonic missiles, spaceplane, as reusable watch vehicles. Now, what are hypersonic missiles? Now, any missile which is capable of traveling of more than 5 times the speed of sound, that is more than 6,125 kilometers per hour, are the missiles called as hypersonic missiles. Now, missiles such as supersonic missiles are the missiles which travel more than 1 Mach speed. Now 1 Mach speed is the speed of sound, and whenever it travels more than 1 Mach speed, it is the supersonic missile. Whereas if travels more than 5 Mach speed, they are termed as hypersonic missile. Now there are very important characteristics which makes hypersonic missile so desirable and special. First of all is that they travel at very high speed, which enables them to cover vast distances at a fraction amount of time, and it reduces the amount of reaction time that you are providing to your adversary. So what if you are firing a missile which is going to target 1000 kilometers away, and you can understand, as it is traveling at much higher speed, the amount of time taken from missile to launch till it hits the target, it reduces. And also they are quite maneuverable in nature, which makes them easy to change directions, and it also makes them evade the enemy radar and so as to avoid detection and interception by enemy anti-surface missiles. Also, the trajectory of these kind of missiles is that they travel in the atmosphere itself, and that is why the radars which are designed to capture ballistic missile which are traveling in the outer space, they are not able to capture or detect the flow or incoming hypersonic missiles. So these three characteristics, speed, maneuverability and ability to travel in the atmosphere at much higher speed, is the one that makes these kind of missiles very special. Understood? Now let us try to understand the statement, or let us try to solve the practice question. Consider the following statement. A scramjet engine operates at the principle of air breathing propulsion and is designed to work efficiently at the hypersonic speed. It is correct. It actually works on the principle of air breathing propulsion, as the atmospheric air, it flows into the missile, and by the process of compression, combustion, therefore we are able to power these engines. Also, hypersonic missiles powered by scramjet engine can travel at speed Mach 5 or higher and maintain controlled maneuverability. Yes, these are the two abilities or characteristic of the missile, that they have a very high speed and they also have the ability to maneuver themselves, which makes it difficult for the enemies to detect and intercept these missiles. Also, unlike traditional jet engines, scramjet engines require an external supply of oxygen for combustion, as they cannot operate in Earth's atmosphere. Now, this statement you have to understand is incorrect. Now, what the scramjet engine requires is the atmospheric oxygen and not any external oxygen supply. Therefore, third statement here is incorrect. Now, first and second is right, third is not. We have to identify correct statement. Option A is the right answer. Yes, Baga Spinks, you are always getting right. You are on fire today. Sir, upper house election not issued any party whip related concern. No, actually the upper house election which happens in the state legislature, there the party members are required to follow the whip which are issued by the parties. Okay, I hope it makes your doubt clear, if I am getting your doubt correctly. Now, moving to another article, this one appeared on the website of Indian Express newspaper, and it states that the government has taken a route, or the parties have taken a route, so that they get political donations from electoral trust, and this was after the fact that Supreme Court declared electoral bonds, which was earlier used to provide financing to political parties, as unconstitutional and void. Now, let us try to understand the context of today's article. Now, February last year, that is one day after Valentine's Day, what the Supreme Court did, that it ruled out, or it made the electoral bond scheme as an unconstitutional scheme, and therefore the parties, they were directed not to accept payments if it were to be made from electoral bonds. Rather than depending on electoral bonds, now what the parties are doing, as they are relying significantly on the increased use of electoral trust to take political financing and take donations from any members in India. So this indicates that after the electoral bonds have been declared unconstitutional, now the parties, they are primarily relying on electoral trust. So let us try to understand what are these electoral trust and how are these different from electoral bond scheme, which was the earlier case. Now, electoral trust, these are actually private companies or private trust which are made by companies registered under Section 5 of Companies Act, and these trusts are established just for one sole purpose, that is, they will act, the trust will be adding money from the donations which are made by individuals and companies, and then that money will be transferred to the political parties as a method of political donation. Now, the people who are eligible to donate to these trusts are Indian citizen, companies, firms, Hindu undivided families or association and person who are residing in India, and this is as per the Income Tax Act 1961. Now, the renewal and allocation of money through these trusts is that these trusts must be renewed every 3 years, and these trusts must allocate at least 95% of the contributions made to these trusts as a donation to political party. Whereas the identification of beneficiaries are concerned, here the trust utilizes PAN number to identify residents of India and passport number to identify the NRIs which are living outside the Indian country. Okay. So these are electoral trusts. Now let us try to understand what makes electoral trusts different from electoral bonds. Now first aspect that we are going to understand the difference between electoral trust and electoral bond is the amount of transparency. Now as these electoral trusts, they are public bodies and public funds, so any person, they are able to see who is funding which political party and also the beneficiary, that is which political party is getting the most money out of the trust. Also in cases of electoral bond, this kind of transparency was not there, as it lacked transparency, as only the aggregate amount which was received by political parties from any number of electoral bonds was published. However, the political parties, they were not publishing which individual has actually given what amount of money to that political party. So in terms of transparency, electoral bonds, they are electoral trusts, they are more transparent than the electoral bonds. Now let us try to understand the donor anonymity. The contributors who are contributing money into the trust, their details are made public, and therefore the tracing, it might be quite challenging. However, it is still possible for individuals like you and I to understand and trace which kind of a donor has given what money to which political party. Whereas in terms of anonymity of donors, the electoral bond, they were completely anonymous. Therefore, it was able to shield the identities of political donors from the public domain. So therefore, in terms of anonymity, these electoral bonds, they were more anonymous than compared to the public trusts. Also, the reporting requirement is that these trusts, they are mandated to submit an annual contributions report to Election Commission of India, and this provides detailed account of contributions and what amount of donations have been made to political parties. Whereas the electoral bonds are concerned, the parties, they were only required to highlight the total donation or the total amount of money they have received from bonds without specifying who are the individual donors. Now let us try to understand the donating patterns. These are quite varied in nature. As we have seen, there are some trusts who donates to many political parties, whereas other trusts are there who donate specifically to any one political party. Whereas in terms of donating patterns of electoral bonds is concerned, they are very less transparent in nature, as there are no details of donors made in public, and therefore the specific donations, they remain unclear in the electoral bonds. So on a larger scale, you can understand that the electoral bonds, it was less transparent, it provided more autonomy or anonymity to the donors, and the reporting requirements and patterns, they were not very much visible. Whereas the electoral trusts are concerned, they are very transparent in nature, as it provides the information in which person is donating what amount of money to which political party, and the anonymity in this case is also not there, which makes the entire transaction more transparent to the public in general. Also, there are significant reporting requirements which makes it mandatory for these trusts to report their contribution and donation detail to the Election Commission of India every year with the help of reports. Understood? Now let us try to solve this practice question. Consider the following statements. Electoral trust in India, they are non-profit organizations set up to receive donations from individuals and corporates and distribute them to registered political parties. This is correct. Electoral trusts are not required to disclose the details of donors and the amount of contribution to the Election Commission of India. Now this is incorrect. They are actually required. Not required is incorrect. They are actually required to publish this data and provide these data to the Election Commission of India. Therefore, second statement is incorrect. First is right. We have to identify correct. Therefore, option A is the right answer. Sir, with donors detail available, won't it pose a threat to them? No, actually the decision between whether to make the details not available to the public, it was more risky, because it can create a possibility that some businesses, they might be donating to one political party, and it can create conditions of quid pro quo. But whenever the details of any individual is public, it does not have the ability of those donors to influence the political decisions. Understood? So that is why out of these two vices, India has chosen actually to make these kind of details public so as to increase transparency. Understood? Now let us move to the last article of the day. This one also appeared in the website, and the context of this article is that you have to understand that after coming to power, unlike many politicians, Mr. Trump started to fulfill his electoral promises. That is, in the first instance only, he started to doing all his work. Now, the context of today's article, as I told you, is that he came into office on January 28th, and since then he has issued a barrage of executive orders, which means until the 9 p.m. on 20th of January, Mr. Trump has signed as many as 80 executive orders. Now, these executive orders dealt with many problems that the US faced with. It dealt with issues that US wanted to withdraw from Paris Agreement, from the membership of WHO, and also ending the birthright citizenship to people or to children who are born out of people who are not the citizens of United States. Understood? So in our today's discussion, let us try to understand what are these actually executive orders and why are these important. Now, these are signed, written and published directives from the President of United States that manages the operations of federal government, and the sanctity and the ability of United States President to publish executive order, it comes from the Article 2 of the US Constitution, which states the executive power shall be vested in the President of United States of America. So executive, it is responsible for implementing the laws in our country and any country for that matter, and therefore it is an implicit power of the United States President to execute executive orders and to bring executive orders which helps manage the operations of federal government. Now, the President, there are certain limitations on what these kind of an executive orders can do or cannot do. These President, he cannot make any new laws through these executive orders. As you can understand, there is a philosophy called separation of power, which means making laws, that is the responsibility of legislature, executing laws, that is the responsibility of executive, and the dispute settlement, which is the responsibility of judiciary, they have to be separated from each other. And as US follows strict separation of power, therefore the executive, which is headed by President, they cannot make any law through the executive orders. However, as I've already told you, this there is a separation of power, therefore these executive orders, they are not required to be approved by the US Congress or its parliament, as they are not a legislation. However, they cannot be directly overturned by the Congress. Rather, only a sitting US President can overturn his earlier executive order or the executive order of previous presidents. Understood? So, only executive, that is US President, can overturn the executive order. However, such order, they are subjected to judicial review if it appears that it violates constitutional provisions of United States government, or it exceeds the President's authority. So, it is not subjected to be approved by US Congress, rather it is subjected to be reviewed by the judiciary of United States. Understood? So, this is what executive order of United States is all about. Now, let us try to understand the difference between issuing executive order by the United States President and the ability of Indian President to publish orders through various measures, particularly the ordinance method. Now, let us first try to understand the nature of office, that the United States system, it is actually a presidential system. So, both head of state as well as head of government is the United States President. Whereas India, it follows a presidential system, which means the head of state is the President of India, whereas the head of government is not the President, rather the Prime Minister of India. So, the actual power of the executive in India is vested with the head of government, that is Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister issues the directive to President of India based on the decisions made by Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The President of India issues any kind of order. So, that is why in terms of powers to act independently, here the US President has significant power, because US is a presidential system of government where both the government and state is headed by the President, whereas the power to act independently, they are quite limited in India for the Indian President, because the President of India acts on his or her own discretion in very small number of cases, but in large number of cases, the President of India is bound by the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Understood? So, the scope of presidential order or the power of the presidents to issue the order, it is much more in the case of US President, whereas in terms of Indian President, the President can issue order only after the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Now, the type of power which is provided to the American president is an implied power, as the Constitution of India says that it is the executive which executes the decision, and hence there is only an implied power given in the Constitution of United States. Whereas in the Indian Constitution, the power of president to implement any directive is explicit power, particularly from the Article 123 of the Constitution, which provides for issuing ordinances in India. Now, the nature of this power, or the scope and purpose of this power, you have to understand, is administrative in cases of United States government. As the United States government or the US president, it uses this power to issue executive order for matters like government day-to-day functioning or matters of foreign policy and national security, which you can understand is the purpose of United States president. Whereas the scope and purpose of this power for Indian president is legislative. Why? Because there are times when Indian parliament is not in function, that it might be on recess. So what happens if that time you require some emergency kind of a situation, or you require a law which requires to be passed immediately? So for that purpose, the President of India is given the power to issue ordinances under Article 123, and it has the same legal sanctity as a law passed by the Indian Parliament. So the purpose of this is primarily legislative for Indian president, whereas for American president, the purpose is primarily administrative. Now, in terms whether the President of America requires parliamentary approval, the answer is no, as there is strict separation of power. Understood? So it does not require any parliament approval. Whereas in terms of India, yes, ordinances issued by President of India requires parliamentary approval within 6 weeks of the next session of the House, and after it is only approved by the Parliament of India, then only the ordinance have a legal sanctity. However, within the 6 weeks of time, it is also an option of the Indian Parliament to reject the ordinance. In that case, the ordinance ceases to exist. Now, whether these American and Indian precedent orders are subjected to judicial review, yes, in both cases they are subjected to judicial review. And when it comes to duration of the power, in cases of US president, it is permanent, which means until the next order comes or it ends this kind of order, it remains in function. Whereas the powers of Indian president to issue ordinances is temporary, and it can only exist for a maximum period of 6 weeks and from the next session of any house. So that is why such powers are temporary in nature. Understood? So in the scope of our today's discussion, we understood the differences of powers in American president and Indian president to issue orders, and the scope of these orders in terms of Indian president, it is wider than compared to US president. However, when it comes to sanctity or the amount of approval required for the orders, this is required for Indian president from the legislature, whereas for the American president, it is not required. Understood? Now let us try to understand how to write this question. Compare and contrast the powers of United States government to issue orders with the Indian president's power. Now, as usual, you will divide your answer into 3 parts. Now, here you will start with the term executive, as president of any country is the head of state, and hence it is required to execute the laws for its day-to-day functioning. Understood? So this is how you will set up your answer. Now you will also write here that the differences between American president, that he is both head of state and head of government, whereas Indian president is just head of state, whereas head of government is the Indian Prime Minister. So the powers of Indian president to issue executive orders, it is less, and it is not at its own discretion, rather it is as per the wishes and aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Whereas for the American president is concerned, it is quite wider because of the presidential system of government. Now in body, you will determine the scope of these orders. That is, you will eventually write what I have highlighted in the table here. Now please make sure whenever you are writing such kind of an answer that requires comparison, please make the table in the answer itself, as it makes your answer much more comprehensive and it makes your answer much more presentable. Whereas if you are required to write these kind of an information in a paragraph or in a points format, it will far exceed the word limit. So you have to write this answer in a form of table only. So please don't feel shy if you want to make a table in the answer writing. So the body will actually cover this table in total. Understood? Now you will conclude your answer by saying that the scope of power is wider in India's president. However, this scope of power is limited by aid and advice of Council of Ministers, and it is also subjected to be approval from the Indian Parliament, which is not the case in case of US President. Understood? So this is how you will conclude your answer. So if you have any problem in writing this answer, please feel free to contact me on the Telegram channel, and if also you want to get your answers evaluated, this is your Telegram channel where you can publish your answers. Now the practice question of the day that I have modeled exactly on the previous year question on the year 2020. Now this question appeared on cotton. Now after cotton, the most important fiber is jute, so I have curated this question. So please answer this question in the comment section, and I will discuss this question before the start of tomorrow's session. So this was all from my side for today's session. I will see you again tomorrow at 10 AM sharp. Until then, keep reading, keep analyzing, and more importantly, keep writing your answers without fail.